My name is Matt Tiffany. Welcome to a part of our farm. That's my father, Bruce, and I've got a couple of our guys that help us on our farm, Tom and Mike here. So welcome. Glad you're here. Like Mark said, I'm a mentor. We use strip till, no-till, and cover crops. We started with cover crops first. Kind of got into the no-till, strip-till right at about the same time and have been learning as we go. And like you said, we're going to talk about some equipment. Just a few pictures, some of all of the practices we use there. We raise corn, soybeans. All of our soybeans are for seed for Bayer, parent seed. So we have some interesting looking fields with 1X stuff. So there's 1 to 5 acres of 170 different soybean varieties. We do a bunch of that, and then all of the rest of our acres are seed acres. Then we also raise cereal rye or winter rye that we clean back here and sell as a cover crop seed. So got a few customers in here. Mike's the guy that does a lot of the cleaning. So that's what we raise. We used to raise sweet corn. We've had peas in the past. And really the sweet corn is what allowed us to try in the cover crops. It's either Dad usually had an earlier planted sweet corn, which got harvested usually in August, gave us a great window to try covers. I usually had a later planting, usually in middle to the end of June. That allowed me to play around with stuff that overwinters or that covers the soil before sweet corn. So we've had some unique opportunities with our crops that we grow to give us those windows to get good cover crop seeding. With our soybeans, we raise a lot of double zeros. So for Saskatchewan, northern North Dakota, last year we started combining beans the first week of September. So we get our seed, some of our soybeans harvested early, which gives us a window to seed our rye. These are some of the reasons why we use them. The picture there, which is a little dark, is a road ditch full of dirt, and this was from in April. In May of 2012, we were planting some soybeans, and you couldn't see a quarter mile because of the dirt blowing. And that's really what got us started thinking that we need to do something different. According to Mark Seeley, the climatologist for the U of M, or I think he's retired, April is Minnesota's windiest month, out of all of the months. If you think about April, we don't have much growing. And if you're at conventional tillage, there's not a lot of cover out there at all. So, and we've seen it. We saw it in 2012. This is 2015. Dirt's moving. And I think in our part of the world here, a lot of it is wind. And, you've seen the road ditches in the winter, the black against the white. It's very easy to see that soil has moved. Those are some of the reasons why we use cover crops, and for me it was seeing the wind blowing the soil around. We needed to do something different. We've seen improvement in soil health, the economic benefits. If you're a livestock producer, that feed value, that's real money. Wildlife habitat, and then that bottom one I think is an important one, is that public perception of what we're doing on the farm. People want to know where their food's coming from. People want to know how it's raised. We need to do a good job of showing, hey, we're taking care of stuff and we're doing it the best we can. So just a few more pictures. We had some flown on stuff, which it is a little bright in here. You can't see that, but some flown on stuff in the fall. Bet you've got a clicker. There. This is how it looked in the next spring, and this is what it looked like after we seeded it with our sunflower out there with the seeder. We've tried it in different ways. We got a nice cover there. I don't have any cattle, and I don't want anything to do with owning cattle, but I like having cattle on the ground. Some of the fields I have are fenced in. I've got a quarter section down here south on 71 that is fenced in, and then another 80-acre field that is completely fenced in. So I've got fence, I have covers. I'll try to find somebody that has the cattle. So I really like the idea of animals on the landscape. I don't want to mess with them. So I'm planting the cover anyway. If somebody has cattle, we'll talk and we can bring them there. So while we get right into equipment, what do we use to seed covers? When we started with the cover crops back in 2014, when we started seeding covers, we went looking for tools to seed covers. What's our best tool that we can find? We have that sunflower out there. They call it a vertical tillage tool. It's not a true vertical tillage tool. But we bought it because we compared that one with the Salford that's more of a straight independent coulters. And then they had another Salford that's more of like a disc plow type thing. That one really moves a lot of dirt. So we had those three tools, and we picked the one that gave us the best cover crop stand. This is when we were in kind of a conventional tillage anyway. That's why we bought that one. It gave us the most uniform stand. The one Salford didn't move enough dirt to bury much of the seed. The other one buried it too deep, and this one was kind of in the middle. So that's why we got it. The co-op would spread the seed, and when we ran it in with a chisel plow was how we first started, and then we got that sunflower after that. We've done flying it on in 17 and 18, and that's kind of hit or miss. Does it rain or not? Variable stands on that. Seeded with both a double disc or an air seeder. The double disc drill we use on those soybean fields where we don't plant end rows because we may have 40 different soybean varieties in a field, so we don't plant headlands or end rows. We use a double disc drill for that. I've done some stuff with an air seeder. That's probably been the best stand because it's in the soil, low disturbance, in the moisture, or the air cart behind the VT tool, which there's some real advantages to that too. There's kind of some of the tools we use. You know, the downside with a double disc drill is in a no-till, it's hard to get it to penetrate and to close anything just because it's designed for tilled soil. The sunflower that we've got out there, it's fast, it's very low maintenance. The Valmar that we have mounted on the cart, we can carry a lot of seed. Having it on the cart, it doesn't separate itself very well, like in a box drill bouncing right on the ground. If you have a mixture, it separates. The heavy stuff goes to the bottom, the light stuff rises to the top. We haven't seen that with the cart. I've seeded some mixtures for some guys where it kind of stays mixed pretty well just because it's on those big wheels and it doesn't bounce all along like on a drill. And then the air seeder. That's used, we don't own one, we hire that done. All of our rye gets seeded with that. Last year we had 350 acres of rye seeded with that. And I have used it for cover crops after the rye, and we have some beans that were seeded with that air seeder too. So we could probably justify owning one, but for what we pay for custom hire, owning and maintaining and finding a guy and a tractor, I think we're probably better off just hiring it done. So those are some of the tools that we have used for seeding covers. Most of what we seed for a cover crop just stays in the field. After rye, it usually has 4 different species in there mixing with it. It's usually been rye. I use screenings because I have a lot of them. Screenings, oats, rapeseed, and usually another brassica in there somewhere too. The rye will overwinter, the rest winter kills. With the cattle, it'd be the same thing. We throw that, and if they have cattle, they pretty much eat it. It's nice that way. Yeah, I haven't gotten into a lot of the 12-way mixes, and I probably should do something on our end rows. We're seeing it this year in corn where we no-tilled into that. We use sorghum Sudan grass because it outcompetes the weeds, and with that big fibrous root system, it helps a lot for the semi-traffic for hauling boxes out. All of our seed goes in boxes, which gets stored on the other side of the wall. So there's a lot of truck traffic. So all that fibrous root system really helps with the compaction. But the problem is it's very high carbon, and we're seeing some tie-up in our nitrogen and stuff on that. So need to find some mixture there that is going to give us the shading for the weed control, help us with the compaction, but not just a more balanced seed-to-N ratio. So that's for next year. Strip till, that was the first thing we kind of moved into. Bought a strip till rig in 2017, kind of started looking at it in 2015. Very few people around here that strip till. I've met a few more, got a couple more back here that were strip tilling then that I didn't know who to talk to. But started looking around 2015, 2016, okay, I think this idea works. And the only reason I was interested in strip till was the dollars. The soil health part, I just wanted to make more money. And I think when we think about doing things, it has to be profitable. It's not sustainable if you can't make money and pay for itself at least. So I started looking at the strip till as, can I make more money doing something different? So bought the Flexicoil that's out there the fall of 2017. We make our strips in the fall. It's got a 2-inch point, shank machine. We variable rate 2 products of fertilizer through that with a Trimble FM 1000 using the Field IQ. Really happy with that, how that works. We make 1 pass in the fall and we haven't touched it in the spring. And depending on conditions, and these guys that strip till know this, if you have good conditions for strip tilling, you need to be strip tilling. Wet soil, you get big lumpy strips. Dry soil, it fractures, it shatters, it makes a more mellow, nice strip. So, we do it in the fall. We haven't had to do a freshener pass. We have row cleaners on both of our planters, and we run those probably a little more aggressive than some would to move some of those lumps that we would have. We don't have a lot of rolling up and down, and we have tried to shift our fields the direction we farm them, so we're on the side of the hill instead of up and down the hill. We haven't had a lot of issues with strips washing out. Part of that, I think, is we leave them pretty lumpy. And some of them are lumpier than I like, but we haven't done a spring pass. Reduce the passes. And another thing, when we started looking at this, my grandfather was, 89, I think, and 17, let's see. Yeah, probably about 89. He was our tillage guy. He did the fall tillage, he did the spring tillage, and we knew, he's probably not going to be there forever. So what are we going to do, and are we going to be able to find those extra people? So that was part of it too, is the workload. Can we cut out that pass in the spring? And he didn't like that idea. He wondered, what am I going to do? And rightfully so. He's not going to sit there and manage the computers and all of that stuff and make strips. So that was one of the things too. It reduced some passes in the field. 1 pass of fall, we show up, we plant. We really like that. We've had good yields, and we use about 0.58 gallons of fuel an acre for our seed bed prep, our fertilizer application. We're ready to plant. So I like that idea. Now it's got to yield about the same too. I don't have to have a yield bump. If we yield the same and we reduce our inputs, that's more money in my pocket. Some of the benefits there, nice list. The time here, this is on 1,000 acres, which is about number of acres we have of corn every year. Wrong button. That's the benefit. About 50 hours of time I figured we'd save. That's a week's worth of time. What do you want to do with your time? That's either less time I have to pay these 2 clowns, or that's time I can go do stuff with my family. That's time if I wanted to do custom work. 50 hours is savings time from a chisel plow and a field cultivator to go into strip till. So I really like that. We had a fertilizer savings because we reduced our rates, which U of M says we can do by banding it. So we did. 22 acres there, $22 an acre just in reduced cost from fertilizer because we went to 80% of a broadcast rate. Basically just showing how the strip works. We go about 6 inches deep. On a 30-inch spacing, it leaves about an 8 to 10-inch strip with that nifty egg unit. Fertilizer is blown right in the bottom. Well-tilled soil, 20 22 inches in the middle untilled. So it's a nice way, you're really tilling about a third of the field. So it's a nice way to have the untilled in the middle, but you still have your tilled soil in the middle with your banded fertilizer right underneath it. It's a great, really a really great system to reduce tillage, but get your nutrient placement there. Strip till equipment, it's sitting out there. We'll take a look at that. It's a Flexicoil 2340. It's got 2 bins. It has a 3-point on the back and the Flexicoil bar. That was originally a cedar, and somebody added the strip till units on it. And I bought it because it's a pull type. Didn't know if the front wheel assist tractor was going to pull it. Had a 4-wheel drive that could pull it if that didn't. So that's why I went with a pull type instead of a mounted. If I bought a mounted for this front wheel assist tractor, and if it didn't have the horsepower, then I'm kind of stuck. So they're a Nifty Ag P40 unit mounted on the bar. I know Dean had the P40s. I think you had the P40s. They're a fairly heavy built row unit. We'll take a look at them out there. Tractor's a Challenger 675D. That's, I think, 320 horsepower at the engine. And I would pull this thing at 6.5 to 7 miles an hour, no problem. Covered 20 to 25 acres an hour with a 12-row strip till bar. And for fertilizer, we use a Trimble Field IQ. Either it's a 2050 or 1000. And our RTK is we use MinCores. So that's a free service that State MnDOT has. We stream that to a tablet, and then that tablet sends it via Bluetooth into our monitor. We've been really happy with how MinCores has worked. We do have a base station that we use for tiling, and we talked about setting up a base and doing that, but and somebody's got to remember to turn on the base and all of that. And by the time you get to the field and the base is not on, and MinCores has worked. We saw the benefits before. There are some challenges to this. It's definite change in mindset. It's a mindset of I am planting, and that operator needs to be able to do that. So you're not tilling, you're planting. You're planting your fertilizer. This is where I'm going to plant the field next year. This is where I want to make my strips. This is how I want to do it. Where, conventional tillage, he's just turning the soil over. He's working it up, making it black. There's some room for forgiveness there. And you're going to have us pass in the spring to fix up some of that. Maybe that wasn't done right. This is one time it's done, and I want it done right. So that skilled operator is an important part. That it's a shift. An 89-year-old grandfather who is actually really pretty progressive wasn't going to probably do this. So that guy that gets off of work at 3:30 and you put him in the ripper maybe isn't going to cut it. So there's a difference, and I think you're talking about the operators with your strip till and your custom stuff too, and with fertilizer stuff. We use a lot of technology that has a learning curve, and it doesn't always work perfect, but we use an awful lot of technology. Weather, if it's fit to be making strips, you should be making strips. There's not a lot of people to talk to, and I think that's probably why I do the mentor thing, is when I was out learning and trying to find out about this, there was a group of people, actually it was in the Dakotas, that were doing this. And they gave me a lot of confidence in just having a sounding board for somebody to bounce ideas off of. Hey, will this work? Will this not work? That network. There isn't a huge network, and that's where there's a value in the Soil Health Coalition mentors. Ask me questions. And then finding equipment. There's not a lot of equipment dealers. You're getting more now that you're finding. Sterling Equipment in Cottonwood, I think, sells Kraus stuff, Gladiators and whatnot. ZML Ag, I think they're based out of Iowa. And I think Ag VS down in Lake Wilson works with them. AgVS sells nifty egg stuff too, and they probably have Yetter stuff, but there's not a lot of places to go get parts and things like that. No-till, got approached in March of 2018 from a landowner that, hey, their previous tenant moved on. Are you interested in farming? And it started with an 80, and then, well, I got another 80, and then there's a quarter, and then it's really a pretty good deal. But they wanted it all no-tilled. It was in a 3-year EQIP contract. 2018 was their 3rd year of that contract, and if we tilled it, they had to pay back. I just bought a new planter with Delta Force and clean sweeps and all of that stuff, so I supposedly had a planter that could do it. So we adjusted the contract. We kind of put a flex in there that if it yields over, new to me, so I don't know what this is going to turn out. If it yields over a certain level, I'd pay some more in rent, and so they worked with me on that. Throughout 2018, which we had 10.5 inches of rain around here on July 3rd. There was a lot of water standing. I'll tell you this, it didn't yield very well, but we didn't get all the nitrogen on either. So there's a lot of stuff that didn't work well with us in 2018. But seeing that soil and how it handled that water in 2018 was really interesting, that we had 4 inches of rain multiple times, and you'd walk around out there, and I have some videos that will turn sideways, but you'd step right next to the water and it would squish out, and you'd move your foot and it all goes right back into the soil. And this was just the 3rd year that they were no-till. And I thought, well, this is pretty neat. This is pretty cool. And there wasn't tile there. And it was interesting to see the water standing. The beans are in standing water. They're looking fine. And then we went back the next day because I thought it was cool. So I went and got my dad and said, you got to see this. And my pond is gone. But from here to that seed cleaner is the neighbor's farm, and he's a beet guy and conventional tillage, and that's what everybody was doing. He had a pond, and I didn't have standing water. And it's the same Okoboji basin soil type. I mean, heavy wet. The tile is actually on his side, and there's a spur that jogs just into my side. He's got the same, actually more tile than I have. What's the difference? And this hadn't been tilled in 3 years, and they went cover crops, fenced it all in. They were grazing, and they kind of really just jumped in. So it was really interesting to see the differences just in that 3rd year from his fence to mine. So after 10.5 inches, I've got it drowned out. He's got it drowned out. I drive through, and we're going to seed a cover crop in these drowned out areas so we don't have weeds growing everywhere. I seed the cover crop with our sunflower. He's got water standing. We came to harvest. I drive through, lift up, go over my cover crop. He still has standing water. Something's different here. So that made me start thinking on those fields, let's just keep doing no-till on those fields. We're going to keep strip tilling on everything else, and we're going to compare. So that's how we got started no-tilling. It wasn't hey, I really want to no-till. It was kind of not by force, but strong suggestion that you should no-till this field, at least for 1 year. Some no-till benefits. We still make that one pass in the field in the fall, applying fertilizer. We still have a lot of equipment, but we're getting rid of some. Environmental benefits. We've seen a healthier crop, healthier soil, nutrient cycling, and that bottom one right there, that one, we've seen to make more money no-tilling. And that, again, like I said at the beginning, is why I got into the strip till, was let's be more profitable. So we have 2 planters. We have a 12 row and a 16 row. Both of them are white planters. Both of them have Delta Force, clean sweep row cleaners, and then we run cast spike closing wheels. One of them has the open spoked gauge wheels, narrow ones, that I wanted narrow ones to stay within that strip. So when we're using the row cleaner to move our lumps, I wanted narrow gauge wheels to stay within that path that my row cleaners cleaned versus just normal gauge wheels that are a little wider. So if a lump gets out there and then that gauge wheel rides over it, it gives us a planting depth issue. We apply 2 liquid products with our planter. We have 1034O that goes in furrow, and we usually go 3 gallons of that plus a gallon of water just to add a little more volume. On our no-till stuff, like this year where we had to make some changes, I will go up to 6 gallons of 1034O. That gives me about 23 pounds of phosphorus, but usually it's 3 in 1, 3 gallons of product plus a gallon of water and a quart of zinc. And then we'll run a blend of 32 and ATS 0x2 out the back on the surface. And that's variable rated for the sulfur requirements, and that's based on soil organic matter. So, technology. That was kind of a product of U of M's research and stuff for sulfur. High organic matter should mineralize enough sulfur. So we variable rate that product. Now that also variable rates our 32%, our nitrogen, which means we need to variable rate our nitrogen application, which is either in the fall or in season side dress. So there's all sorts of stuff going on with technology. When it works great, it's easy. And for the most part, it usually works pretty well. And it's all run with the 2020 as far as the planter stuff. We use Climate's Field View as our kind of our platform there. All of our stuff is on that. So started no-tilling 2018. Those fields that I inherited had been organic for probably 8 to 10 years. As you can imagine, P levels are not very good. So 2s and 3s, single digits, low single digits for phosphorus. Weed control was also not very good. But I was really looking at the fertility thing, and I know we've heard a lot now about Marion Calmer talking about stratification. And if we blow it all on the surface for 20 years, why wouldn't it be more on the surface? So I didn't think putting my non-mobile nutrients on the surface was a very good idea for high-yielding corn. So I wanted to find a way to get them in the soil. So we had Cultivar 1.0. The beauty of the Flexicoil has a 3-point lift on the back. So we had a cultivator sitting there doing nothing. Let's make a cultivar and let's try to ban some of this fertilizer below the surface. Bought some planter-mounted John Deere single disc openers on New Ag Talk for a pretty good deal. Went cheap, took the cultivator units off, hooked it to the back of the Flexicoil, and let's try this. It worked all right. In the fall, you have combine wheel tracks, nice shift over, probably 9 inches, 10 inches. So some of them were in a combine wheel track. You didn't get in the soil very deep. They're just not heavy duty enough to place it very deep. But in some of those others, it was 2 inches, it was about as far as it would go. And then I would plant on that band in the spring. Didn't have it ready for 2018, so that field didn't get anything banded. It was just 6 gallons of 1034O, and for odd reasons, I'm not sure what they use for fertilizer in their no-till or their organic, but really high K levels in those fields, like 400s. So I don't know what they use, but high in K. There were some real downsides to that. Didn't get it deep enough. The benefit was it kind of proved my concept. I used it the fall of 19. Spring of 19, it was ready and I was going to use it, but it was light and wet. And by the time it was dry enough to do this, I needed to be planting. So we didn't use it in the spring of 19. It was ready to go, but figured we should plant. Use it that fall. So 2020 was the first corn year I had where we actually banded some dry fertilizer under the surface. But it kind of proved that concept that, hey, this can work. We can get that soil down there, or that fertilizer down there. I need to find something a little heavier duty than these planter-mounted openers. That's Cultivar 2.0. sitting out there. A guy had this down in Nebraska. It had a single bin Montag on it when I bought it. Very heavy built. Yetter Magnum units. I bought the Gen 2 Montag for it last year. Was the first year I had it, so I had that dual product that we can variable rate. Really love how the Montag worked. The single bin worked all right. We usually run a P&K blend in one tank and then some urea in the other one. And with the Flexicoil, we put on about 75% of our nitrogen in the fall. So our strips are made after it's cool, after it's cold. We're banding it 6 inches deep. I know Brad Carlson would not like to talk of fall urea, but I think when you're putting it 6 inches deep in a band and you're completely burying it, it seems to be fine. So I like having that P&K blend. We variable rate that based on our most limiting nutrient, which for us is usually phosphorus. So sometimes the K may get a little over applied where we have a higher rate of the blend. But that's the two products that we run. And then, so what I liked about this is, one, we could get our nutrients deeper. We can get them a solid 4 to 4.5 inches in the ground. And if you look on this picture, that's pretty much right up to the hub. It's buried deep, and you can look at it out here. We're getting it below where we're going to seed. So we're getting it in the soil, not on the surface. And we can, do that without making much disturbance. So I kind of bought this for those no-till fields where I'm not going to go out and strip till, but I want to band my nutrients. So that's what there. I pulled it with the same tractor that we pulled the strip till rig. And what I didn't like about this is now I'm having to hook and unhook. With the single bin Montag, I made a pass with the blend, and then I came back with another pass with the urea, that first year. So it was 2 passes. Then I thought, well, let's get a twin bin on there. Dean sold his 2 days before I called him, so I had to buy a new one. But I really liked how the Montag worked. 1 pass, we're done. I use about half the fuel that the strip till did. Cover about 35 acres an hour, and that keeps Mike busy tending. So had to buy a bigger fertilizer tender because we're clipping through it pretty quick. And version 3.0 is sitting out there. There's some downsides to version 2.0. Homemade unit, really heavy built, very good construction. He used 1/2-inch wall tubing. There's a lot of iron in it. A lot more iron than these lift assist wheels are built for. So we were fixing things. The caddy's pretty darn well built too. So there's some differences there. These pipes here was my idea of putting a row cleaner in front. So what I wanted to get to was, let's clean a strip. Let's have a dark strip like the strip till so it will warm up and dry out, but without the tillage. That didn't work. They were fixed, and this thing flexes all over, and some are gouging, some are doing nothing. So I wanted a better unit. Version 3.0 is the updated version of the Magnums. So it's the Magnum 10,000s. There's a plate you can put on the front. And Tommy took all the row cleaners off our 16-row planter. So we'll have clean sweep row cleaners on there to raise and lower. So now we'll be able to clean a path, dark strip, band of nutrients without the tillage. That's really the goal of where I wanted to get to. The bar is out there, and I bought an Elk Creek caddy with a 3-point top link, and I bought a 3-point mounted strip till bar. So now I'll be able to use the same fertilizer system for both strip till and the no-till. We'll no-till, well, pretty much all of our corn is no-till now. Maybe we should have done the economics part first. And that's because the dollars said we're making more money on the no-till. So all of our corn is no-till for this year except some chunks. So I strip tilled for the neighbor, 140 acres. We custom farm his stuff, so I have a nice comparison there of strip till. And then we have a few blocks that we do in a couple fields just to That's our check. That's kind of our check every year. Is a no-till comparable with the strip-till? And as you guys know, every field's different and hybrids are different, and there's all sorts of variables, but it gives us a big overview look. Are they comparable? So that's where we're going with the no-till. It's a usable unit, but there's some deficiencies. Some challenges. Really, I think these are all, they're not insurmountable. You can overcome these challenges. You got to have a well-maintained planter. The Delta Force, I've been very pleased with the hydraulic down pressure system with the Delta Force and seeding getting our seeding depth accurate. The cast closing wheels, we've been running a plastic copperhead, spiked one, not probably heavy enough. The weight is what we need for closing that in the no-till. Residue, moving that residue. We're not doing any tillage. I like that we're not doing any tillage and mixing it in with our soil, but making sure we move it. The floating row cleaners are good for that. Getting your nutrients in the rut zone, I think, is the biggest thing. And I'm not going to go out and till up fields that have been no-tilled for 8 years just to get my nutrients there. Let's find a better way to actually do it right the first time. We do have some nitrogen tie-up issues in some places. I thought, I was talking with Kevin here before we started, we had this ponding and all the corn stalks floated to the edges, and some of them were really deep. And he thought, man, we wish we had a field cultivator to drag these around. We didn't, we sold it. But we set the row cleaners deep and we just plowed through them. And it's surprising, we don't have these big yellow strips, and we didn't have those. So having our nitrogen and our fertilizer in the root zone, moving the residue, our residue's all on the surface, not mixed in with our soil where the microbes are tying up our nitrogen. I think that played a big part of why we didn't see these big yellow rings around these low spots. Is our residue's all on the surface, our fertilizer's all in the root zone, and we didn't have that nitrogen tie up. But we have had that some in the past. And if you're doing no-till with cover crops, that can be a bit of a challenge too, as far as terminating your cover. And when we talk about economics this afternoon, we've seen some real implications with that. People always, all this stuff costs a lot. Everything costs a lot. So I went on Tractor House. Let's see what used equipment costs. And this was before last year. But if you're going to buy a used chisel plow, a used field cultivator, and a used ripper for doing your regular conventional tillage stuff, and this is stuff I got from Kibble's listings on Tractor House, all sized for the same size tractor you would need for a 12-row strip till bar. So I tried to keep it all. We're using the same tractor for either. There's a cost there. You can buy a 12-row Gladiator strip till, that was also on Tractor House, for $140. And I bought a 24-ton fertilizer tender for $20, so I know you can buy them. Don't give me that excuse that it costs so much. It's the same. It's the same money. So that's my part on equipment cost. Another part in drainage. I'm not going to get in the big religious part of you don't need any drainage because you cover crop and you strip till and you do all of that. The fact is, we have soils that 4 feet down, we have a really hard clay base, and that water just doesn't move through it very well. Will the no-till and the cover crops help? Absolutely, 100% helps. But if you have too much water, you have too much water, and you need to get rid of it. So, if you want a healthy soil, it can't be saturated. Microbes need to breathe too. Minimizing the tillage helps, the cover crops help, but we need to address our drainage issues. Some of my worst fields, as far as getting in there, are no-till fields, and it's because they don't have much for drainage. So addressing that drainage before you go to no-till, so you can manage those tile lines, and that's something I'm going to ask you guys to give me some advice on. You can do your tillage, you can get it leveled out. Now go to no-till where it's nice and smooth and not breaking stuff. So rye is a great crop to have because we harvest end of July. Then Tom and I get to go tile while Mike's in here living the gravy life, cleaning seed. So we do a lot of tiling in August. And I like August because the days are longer and it's not freezing cold. But we got a tile plow sitting out there and we use it a lot. And it's, let's get it tiled, let's address our drainage. You know, those hilltops, we don't need to tile the stuff where the coyote holes are, but let's get all the lower stuff. If we can remove intakes, I know they're going to talk about water quality certification, which myself and my father are. You know, if you remove intakes, there's cost shares to tile. I try to get rid of intakes as much as I can. Rock intakes, those things, I really like them. Don't have to farm around them, and it's not an open drain for dirty water to go right to the river. So we do a fair amount of tiling. Just a picture of the tile plow and AGPS software that we use. I think that's about it. Some other notes. I mentioned we do a lot with technology. There's a shift in operator ability. You know, that fertilizer application is I'm planting. And that's the mindset I take, and that's why I want it right. That planting pass is your one time to seed. This is my one time to get the fertilizer where I want it. The nice thing about applying it yourself is if you mess it up, which has happened, at least I know where I messed it up versus the co-op guy that, yeah, he skipped some here, he skipped some there, or whatever, or something didn't work right, or it bridged over. You don't know where it is because I usually don't tell you. You need to have a good sprayer. You know, for our weed control, we're not doing the tillage to get rid of weeds. So a well-maintained sprayer and a person in it that is taking the time to do it right, that is your weed control. The cover crops do a nice job of that too. Where we plant beans into rye, I sprayed Liberty last week because it's in our seed contract, we have to, but there weren't any weeds there. We had a really nice job. Our residual herbicide did a good job. There weren't any emerged weeds coming through that rye mat. Probably didn't need to use it, but my contract said I did, so we used it. Residue sizing, you know, every pass is important. At fall, you can look at these combines over here, and these are pretty much just bean combines because all of those different bean varieties, you got to clean out a combine between them. So while one's being cleaned, that one's running. So that's why we have multiple combines. But the chaff spreader, that gleaner, that spreader on the back wasn't there last year. And we would see even in strip till, the pods and stuff that come off of the sieves, we would see yellow strips through the field where that extra residue was there. Even in the strip till, it was mixed in there and it was tying up nitrogen. And I know we had some other fields that combine harvested last fall that you could see that there were these yellower strips early. So spreading your residue, chopping your bean stubble, just all of that stuff coming out of the combine is pretty important if you're going to no-till. And we saw it in strip till as well. So some of those things that you may have to address if you move into this, that you're not doing that tillage to spread it out or to mix it up. It's on the surface and it's going to stay where you put it. So let's put it in the right place. And, oh, you can't even see my kids very well. Just a quote I found somewhere that, you know, we're just using this soil for a short time. That let's leave it better than we found it. Let's make some money off of it while we're here. And hopefully the people after us are getting something that they can benefit from as well. So I think that's all I have.